Greetings, my name is Owen Ryder, and I am the author of the Christian book, The Hourglass by Owen Ryder. One of the more prominent biblical figures found primarily in the Old Testament is King David, the shepherd boy who ultimately became the king of Israel. An imperfect individual, the prophet Samuel would anoint David as the future king when he was still a young man, a full 20 years before his actual ascension to the throne. In that period, he would serve under Israel's first king, Saul, and would surpass him in popularity to such an extent that Saul became jealous and sought to have him killed. David played a stringed instrument of that time called the lyre, which in some ways was similar to a modern guitar. He is credited with having penned 70 of the 150 psalms in the Old Testament, and nicknames such as the sweet psalmist or sweet singer of Israel were attributed to him. Once upon the throne, David would lead Israel in its greatest periods of peace as it successfully prevailed over its enemies militarily, but he would ultimately become a victim of his own earthly passions, even resulting in one of his sons attempting to overthrow his kingship. Be that as it may, David's strength was that he knew when he was wrong, and repentance would be granted him by God through his penitent heart. Still, he wrestled with self-doubt, even recording his struggles in many of the psalms he wrote. At one point, amidst the frustration that we, in our own ways, can relate to, and which seemed to be a part of his unique calling, David wrote of the depression he was experiencing, saying seemingly to himself in Psalm 42, and I quote, "Why do you feel this way, my soul?" End quote. Despite his kingly status, David still experienced the highs and lows that often comes with not always being able to recognize and overcome one's own fallen nature, as well as the fallen nature of others. That frustration that we as damaged souls can all too often experience is proof of the fall of man in the form of our, even at times, inability to maintain personal fulfillment in its truest sense. That's not to say one can never experience happiness as well as joy, but that it is all too often fleeting and can result in an emotional indifference of sorts, leaving us not only at odds with ourselves at times, but others as well. In Luke 12:49, in an exchange with those in attendance, Jesus Christ warns his listeners that, though his future return will ultimately establish peace, due to the fallen nature that he will encounter upon his arrival, his return will nevertheless cause great division in its initial stages, even within families, as between a mother and daughter, as well as a father and son. For even today, we can somewhat gauge the nearness of his return with the unprecedented level of anger between differing people groups with differing views on life, as battle lines are figuratively as well as literally being drawn up. Consequently, it has never been more important to know what eternal truth is and where we as created souls stand with regard to it. My name is Owen Ryder. Thanks for listening.